Welcome to those who are on. I want to just welcome you. We're going to begin in a couple moments. Thank you very much. So for those who are on, shut something off. One second. Let me try that again. Oh, okay. I was getting an echo because I was trying to make sure that everything worked. So I tried it on my phone. I didn't realize I was still on Zoom on my phone. But I see many wonderful faces. I know some of you who are joined us online on Zoom, and some of you have joined us on YouTube. So to all my dear friends, welcome, welcome, and Shana Tova to each and every one of you. This is definitely something different, something unique. But we always learn that we have to make the most and the best of every situation. And we're starting a new year. A year, the Rebbe used to always give names to the years based on the letters, the Hebrew letters that make the number of the years. And in 1991, which was Tafshin Nun Aleph 5751, it was Tafshin Nun Aleph. The Rebbe said that year was Tehei Shnat. It should be a year of Niflaot Arenu, which means great wonders. And during that year, in a note, in one of the Rebbe's talks, the Rebbe wrote that just like Tafshin Nun Aleph, that 1991, 5751, 30 years ago, was a year of great wonders, he referenced the year Pei Aleph, the year that we're going into now, that it also stands for tremendous, tremendous wonders. We know that in 1991, before the year started, well, before, I like to say 5751, before the year started, the Rebbe said we'll see great miracles, and we do remember the great miracles of the Gulf War. And let's hope that, God willing, starting tonight, as we enter the new year of 5781, Tehei Shnat Niflaot Arenu, that we should see tremendous, tremendous wonders of good health and happiness for all of us, for all of you and our families. So we're going to begin this evening. We have Cantor Ellie Marcus, who has prepared some introductions and some songs to give us the flavor of the holiday of Rosh Hashanah. And I'm going to ask Julie, if you, as I always ask you, you're usually to the top of my screen, to give me thumbs up if you could hear the sound as he begins to speak.
Moving through the prayers, we now reach Avinu Malkeinu, one of the central prayers of the high holidays throughout Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Now the Talmud tells us that once in the land of Israel there was no rain. Rabbi Eliezer stood up and prayed 24 prayers and he was not answered. But Rabbi Akiva stood up and he said, Avinu Malkeinu, ein lanu melech ela ata. Our Father, our King, we have no one but you. And the heavens opened up and the rain began to pour. So the rabbis adopted this prayer for the high holidays. And what better way to talk to our Father in heaven, first referring to him as our Father, then as our King, and beseeching him to bless us with a happy and sweet new year. The first melody that we're going to sing today was composed by the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneir Zalman of Liadi, the founder of the Chabad movement, who was a prolific composer. And the second one, although its exact origin is unknown, it comes from Eastern Europe and has been sung for hundreds of years. Moving through the prayers, we now reach Avinu Malkeinu, one of the central prayers of the high holidays throughout Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
Join along.
Avinu
Loneinu vaneinu ki ein bonu masi asei bonu tzedoko v'chesed asei bonu tzedoko v'chesed ve'hoishiyenu asei bonu tzedoko v'chesed asei bonu tzedoko v'chesed ve'hoishiyenu.
So, I was once at the airport checking in for my American Airlines flight to London when the check-in agent asked me, how many pieces of luggage would you like to check in? I said 3. 1 to Tel Aviv, 1 to Chicago, and 1 to London. I'm sorry, said the agent. You know, we are unable to do that. To which I replied, really? That's quite surprising because the last time I flew to London, that is exactly what you did without even asking me. For the past 6 months, we have found ourselves in a situation that we had never dreamed of. In some way, we have all had our fair share of challenges, be it illness, loss of a loved one, financial, family, emotional. The list goes on. And of course, for some, the challenges have been so real and so deep. And while we have each been dealing with our own challenges and with the restrictions of social distancing, as much as we have tried, it has been challenging to truly be there to support and care for our friends, our neighbors, and our community. We know that everything happens for a reason. But as we enter the new year, we stand before God and we ask that during the coming year, we merit revealed good and that the luggage we ask for be deposited in its appropriate place. Luggage of good health, luggage of comfort, luggage of joy, luggage of relationship, luggage of nachas, and luggage of prosperity. There is a long-standing tradition among Jewish communities throughout the world to employ cantors to entertain, to engage, and to inspire the multitudes of crowds who flock to synagogue during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. In some congregations, the cantor embodies the primary focus of the high holiday experience. And if the musical presentation is coupled with a rabbi who knows how to tell a good joke or bring a tear to the eye, then without question, it can be considered the ultimate high holiday service. But this year, when many of us will be without a cantor and without a rabbi, it may be worthwhile reflecting on a story that was related, an allegorical story, that was related by the great master of Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, one of the most profound thinkers in the history of Jewish spirituality. Once upon a time, the lion, the king of animal life, grew furious with the other animals in the jungle. His rage was so intense that it evoked deep fright in the hearts of all the other animals. Wondering what to do, the animals called an emergency meeting and were soon confronted by the voice of the fox, who said, "My dear friends, relax, for I have a solution. In the reservoirs of my brain are stored 300 stories and anecdotes. When I present them to the lion, you'll see his mood will be transformed." A wave of joy rushed through all the animals as they embarked on a march towards the lion's home in the jungle, where the fox would placate him and restore their friendly relationship. As they journeyed through the pathway of the jungle, rumors spread that the fox had forgotten 100 of his entertaining stories. Many animals were overtaken by profound trepidation. But soon came the calming voice of Mr. Bear. "Relax, my friends, for 200 of the brilliant fox's stories are more than enough to calm the arrogant lion." But as the large entourage of animals were nearing the lion's habitat, Mr. Fox declared that he had forgotten another 100 of his anecdotes. They had simply slipped his mind. Of course, one can only imagine the fear and dread that befell all the animals, but not before the reassuring voice of Mr. Deer. "Relax, my friends. 100 stories will be more than sufficient to capture the imagination of our Lion King." Moments later, the entire entourage reached the lion's den and watched as the lion rose to his full might and glory, casting a fierce gaze and sending a shiver through the veins of his subject. The animals all looked up to their bright representative, the fox, expecting him to approach the lion and accomplish the great mission of consolidation. Sorry, I'm tired. I'll pass that. Tongue twister. But the fox just stood there and said, "I am sorry. I am unable to remember any of my stories. I have nothing to say to the king." "What?" cried the animals. "You are a vicious liar. You deceived us completely. What are we to do now?" "My job," responded the fox calmly, "was to persuade you to leave your own habitat and take the journey to the lion's den. I've accomplished my mission. Now it's up to each of you to discover your own voice and rehabilitate your own personal relationship with the king." In the same way, concluded the Baal Shem Tov, we all come to the synagogue, be it on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, or any time of the year, and we rely on the foxes, the cantors, and the rabbis to serve as our representatives before the King of Kings. But sooner or later, we must come to realize that the foxes don't really have what it takes to address the king on our behalf. The function of the rabbis and cantors is to inspire each of us to leave our own contained territory, to embark on a spiritual journey toward something far greater than ourselves. As we usher a new year, let each of us reflect on the year that has passed and be inspired to upgrade our commitment to Judaism and personal relationship with God, doing our part to ensure that we, our families, our communities, and the entire world merit to experience an upgrade in God's infinite blessings and love. Wishing each of every one of you a Shana Tova U'Mtuka, a year filled with revealed greatness, a year that our blessings are sweet as honey. And now we continue to the next part of our program. So I'm doing something that is a little bit interesting, and I tell you the truth, I feel a little bit uncomfortable. So I'm going to do it differently, but I'm still going to do it, and I'll tell you what it is. For the last 29 days, I should say 28 days till yesterday. Today is the 29th day of the month of Elul. So for 28 days of the month of Elul, each and every day, we have blown the shofar to inspire ourselves to come closer, to do tshuva, to build a relationship, deepen our relationship with God. And so we sound the sounds of the shofar. We don't do the entire 30 sounds of Rosh Hashanah. And then there's an old tradition, and I'm not going to go into the explanation of it because we don't have enough time tonight. But the day before Rosh Hashanah, we do not blow the shofar. On the other hand, I feel very much that there are going to be people who will not have the opportunity to hear the sound of the shofar this Rosh Hashanah. As much as we've tried on Sunday to create a first service, a second service, a park service, as much as we can to be able to accommodate as many people as we can during these times, not everybody's going to be able to hear the shofar this Rosh Hashanah. And therefore, while making breaks in the sounds so that it's not considered a proper blowing, because it wouldn't be counted now anyway, and also not to be blowing on the day before Rosh Hashanah, as is customary, I'm going to blow each of the sounds of the shofar, and I'll stop by each one and explain that sound. So it'll sort of be a learning experience. So we begin with the tekiah, and the tekiah is one long blow. We do 3 separate sections. We do each section. The first section has the tekiah, the shavarim teruah, and then the tekiah, the long one after it. Then we have the tekiah, shavarim, and then the tekiah. And then we have the third section, tekiah, teruah, tekiah. I'll go through each one as I'm blowing. On Rosh Hashanah, which this year would be on Sunday, we would blow 3 times each round. And then during the repetition of the Amidah, we would do another round of each section by different stops during the silent Amidah of Musa from Rosh Hashanah. Some people have the custom to try to hear in the congregation. The obligation, the biblical obligation, is to hear 30 sounds. But in a congregation, it is customary to hear a total of 100 sounds. So the first is the tekiah. The next is the shavarim, which is 3 broken ones, and then the teruah, which is 9 or more very short ones. And then we finish that section with another tekiah. Just while we hear the shofar, and I want to just mention before I finish off the other 2 parts, that the most important part of the shofar blowing on Rosh Hashanah is 2 parts. One, that we should hear the sound of the shofar, which sounds like a child, a baby crying. So it's the deep emotion of our own feelings as we connect to Hashem, but also Rosh Hashanah, which is the creation, the date that marks the creation of Adam and Eve, the first man in history. On that day, we crown God as our king, and in days of old, it was customary to sound trumpets as one crowned a king, and therefore the shofar represents us crowning God as our king at the beginning of the year. The next section is a tekiah. A shavarim, and another tekiah. And then finally, we have the last section, which is a tekiah, a teruah, and a tekiah. also known as a tekiah gedola, a long, stretched out sound. And we hope and we pray that the ultimate tekiah gedola, which will be when Mashiach comes, should be heard speedily in our days. At this time, we're going to go to the next song with singer Eli Marcus. We're going to get to the next one.
We now come to the Unesana Tokef prayer, one of the most powerful prayers of the high holidays. The story is told about Rav Amnon of Mainz, Germany, who was always being pestered by the local archbishop to convert to Christianity. He finally said to him, "Give me 3 days and I'll have an answer for you." But as soon as he left the presence of the archbishop, he thought to himself, how can I even waver for a moment about giving up my faith? On the 3rd day, Rav Amnon failed to appear. So the archbishop sent his guards to bring him in by force. And when he arrived, he said, "Your punishment for failing to appear will be to have your legs and hands cut off. The legs that should have brought you here." With his last remaining strength, Rav Amnon requested to be brought into the synagogue, where it was the day of Rosh Hashanah. And he recited this prayer of Unesana Tokef, declaring God's awesomeness. He concluded the prayer and returned his soul to heaven. My dear friends, the Unesana Tokef prayer. We now come to the Unesana Tokef prayer. So I'm sure we're all wondering, Unesana Tokef Kedusha Sayoi Ki hu neraviyoi Uvoi sinase malchusecho Vikoin vechesed kisecho Vesei shevolo beyemes Emes hiatu dainu mechiach v'yedei yavoei V'choisei V'sofer u'moyene V'sizkoi l'kol ani yishkochois V'siftach sefer hazichroyenois U'meyei lo v'yikorei V'choiso yad kol odom boy Uvashoifar godoy nitoka V'koil demomodako shoma U'malochim yechafei yezon V'chilu de'odoy yoichei yezon V'yoimru inei yoimadi Livkoi dal tzvomoroi mebadi Ki lo yizeku v'yenecho badi V'chol aboi oilo Yavrun lefonecho Ki v'nei emoroi Use shuvo, use filo, tzedoko Ma'aviri nesroya agizeiro
So I want to finish off in the 3 minutes that we have to tonight, there are several dishes that we have on the table, and I'm sitting at my holiday table. It's a difficult way to enter Rosh Hashanah, but at the same time, knowing that usually we have 180 people sitting eating lunch with us after much of the crowd has gone home on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. And to be celebrating Rosh Hashanah with a smaller crowd in the mornings, very limited crowd tomorrow, and not having any guests in our home this evening, we remind ourselves that everything that happens is for a purpose, is for a reason. It's to make us stronger, to make us better people. I will reflect on this a little bit tomorrow and on Sunday during the service. But I want to just point out a couple of the dishes that we have on the table. And I also want to mention our Chazan, Rab Beryl, who is not obviously joining us this year. I'm going to have to be Chazan Rabbi and everything else in between. But we will miss him. And I want to just talk about the fish that we have on our table. This is a fish head, which is customary. There are different customs. So we have a fish head. I don't know how clear it is. I don't know. I got to figure this out. There you go. Okay. And the idea of the reason why we have a fish head on the table is we ask God that we should be like the head and not like the tail. So that's one custom in very brief. We also have the apple dipped in honey. So if you have an apple at home, please take an apple tonight after you make the kiddush and light the candles. Tonight, candle lighting is at 6:41, which is why we're finishing at 6:35. Dip the apple in the honey and ask God that he should give each and every one of us a really, truly sweet new year. And that's our blessing. So we take a sweet apple, we dip it into the sweet honey, and we pray for sweetness. I think someone took a sour apple last year. Please take a sweet one this year. And finally, I want to just finish off with one of my favorite thoughts of the pomegranate. That the pomegranate has many seeds. The Talmud says that just like the pomegranate is filled with seeds, so too is every Jew filled with mitzvahs. The Rebbe was once speaking to someone and he asked him what this individual's Rebbe had spoken about. And the person said that he asked a question. How could the Talmud say, we know there are many Jews who sin. How could the Talmud say that every Jew is filled with mitzvahs like a pomegranate is filled with seeds? If we see there are Jews who sin. And the Rebbe became serious and the Rebbe said, I have another question. How could you say and look at a Jew who is filled with mitzvahs like a pomegranate is filled with seeds and say that Jew is a sinner? Each and every one of us, in the depth of our souls, in our neshama, is pure, and we have the potential to be able to connect with God and fulfill every single mitzvah, each of the 613. And at this time, I want to wish each of you, those of you who will be joining us, I look forward to seeing you in person, and those who won't, will be thinking of you. We love you, and we wish you a Shana Tova Umetuka, a happy, healthy, and sweet new year. Thank you. So something froze. You might still be able to hear me. I usually have an opportunity to take unmute everyone, but I'm not going to be able to do that.